Hey guys, this is Bill Rice with Age Lead Store. Today we're going to talk about voicemail scripts, and I really want to start to change your mindset a little bit around, what a voicemail is and why it's important, right? So, in the past, the voicemail's sort of role inside of the sales process was obviously, we kind of assumed that customers were going to listen to our voicemails. Um, the voice and the tone, your actual audio file that is the voicemail. The thought was, and it's true, it would build trust and credibility as you leave that voicemail. It would kind of be that first time they hear your voice and who you are, and that tone becomes really important. We talk about tone all the time when we're doing a phone call or we're doing a sales call, and that was part of that voicemail's role. And then the voicemail itself traditionally has been a relatively small part of the sales process, right? It was kind of the exception. Our assumption was always that we would make a phone call, we'd connect with someone, and obviously we'd have to kind of get our foot in the door, so to speak, and we'd have to get them to listen that first 30 seconds, or actually that first couple of seconds is probably the most important. And we spent a lot of time sort of focusing on that, and very little, if any, time thinking about our voicemail that we're going to leave, and particularly having a specific voicemail script. And then, of course, we assume that if we did kind of have to do that exception and leave that voicemail, it'd be relatively simple, and all we needed to do was sort of, tell them to call us back, and they would. And that was, again, these were our assumptions, and probably for, I don't know, 80, 90% of you that are listening, these may still be your assumptions. But I want you to start thinking a little bit differently about voicemails, and I think this is going to change your contact rate and your success, and even just your confidence in your sales process, and kind of this new environment that we live in, where technology has kind of changed what voicemail is. So here's what the new reality is, right? Customers don't listen to voicemails; they actually read them. Right? So this becomes super critical that you have a script, right? And that you practice that script and you get good at doing a really good job of articulating that script when you do encounter a voicemail. Or, potentially there's even solutions that allow you to automate this or drop them when you hear that. So that they are perfect, because you are getting a voice to text transcription. And so the more articulate you are, the clearer that you speak, and the more succinct, maybe even reading that script off, the better that transcription is going to be. And that's going to become really critical. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward in this particular video. The other thing to fundamentally change your kind of understanding of and your perspective on is voicemails are now your call activity, right? And you're probably already experienced this. If you make a lot of phone calls in any given day, you make 100, maybe you're 200, 300, whatever your call volume is, the vast majority of those calls will end in a voicemail, right? Or some of you aren't even leaving voicemails, and I want to make a case to sort of stop doing that, to just kind of make a call and hang up. There may be some appropriate, strategies and tactics in doing that, but voicemails are your call activity. So if you're making outbound calls, those voicemails, that's the end state. That's the ultimate result of your call activity. So we need to take it more serious, and we need to put more focus on what our voicemails read like, right? I almost say listen like or sound like, but it's really, what do they read like? And then the other thing that I think, again, is really important to your strategy and your mindset as they pertain to calls is, and voicemails in particular, is just assume that the customers will not be returning the call. And we're actually going to use that in our scripting strategy. We're going to assume that they're not going to return our call. So we're actually going to kind of turn their focus in a different way, and kind of give them permission not to return the call. But we're actually going to enhance our overall sales process by giving them that permission, right? Because it's going to be the assumption anyway. It's going to happen. They're not going to call you back anyway, for a lot of different reasons it's inconvenient. It's still sort of kind of accelerates them into a sales process they might be a little uncomfortable with or not sort of be ready to encounter. But so let's embrace that. Let's do something strategic and tactical with that. So voicemails, in my mind, and the way that I'm going to kind of teach this particular session, is they shifted from a contact strategy to really a marketing strategy. So what does that mean? That means that you probably should shift your voicemail strategy to scripts. Obviously you want to make sure that those are tight, they're read, they're consistent, and you're articulating that reading, that delivery of that voicemail, and then possibly even automating that. Like I said, there are some solutions. Obviously, this is a compliance discussion and a legal discussion that you need to have internally, but there are some solutions that can make that even better. And when I say better, make sure that you get a good, clean, clear delivery of that voicemail so that it can be effectively transcribed into text. We're going to shift our voicemail strategy to an expectation of creating awareness. This is why I say it's kind of almost like more of a marketing tactic than it is a sales tactic. There's a lot of sort of blending of marketing and sales now because of the technology that's involved and consumer behavior, quite honestly. So when we talk about awareness on those voicemails, we want to embrace that. We want to in that voicemail, in that short, 30 seconds or less, we want to do our best to give just one more opportunity to create product and solution awareness, right? We want to tell them what we have and the problems that we solve, and that's the basics of our voicemail script. We also want to shift our contact strategy, which again typically has been an outbound sales call. We want to shift that strategy, the process that we're developing, and the systems that we're developing to become more of an omni-channel contact strategy. So we're using a couple of different channels together to create that contact, which again, I'm going to sort of make a case for, and you're probably experiencing this. The consumer more and more is preferring the scheduled appointment over hey, I grabbed you on a call, let's start talking about a product or a service that I offer. So omnichannel, meaning that we're going to use email, text, and voicemail or phone call. We're going to use those three together tightly when we're developing our sales process and our scripts. And then last, I kind of touched on this, but fundamentally the assumption and even the objective of your outbound calling should be to schedule an appointment. And a lot of your outbound activities and sales processes, right? Your emails should be driving to an appointment, to setting an appointment. Your text messages should try to accomplish that. And then of course your voicemails and your outbound calls should try to accomplish that. So let's dig deeper into kind of what all this means, right? Last but not least, before we kind of dig into the actual mechanics of this voicemail script and how we kind of build these, again, remember, what are we trying to create? When we create a voicemail script, we're trying to create brand and solution awareness. We're essentially giving one additional impression. So oftentimes in marketing, a lot of you maybe sales, and so you haven't heard this before, but on average, it takes about 7 impressions to get a conversion, right? To get somebody on that call. So voicemail gives us one more opportunity to put an impression in front of them. And so we want to take advantage of that. Also, know that you're just not going to get callbacks, right? So don't make that part of your KPIs. So that contact strategy, those contact rates and those sorts of things, start to reshape those KPIs to emphasize scheduled appointments, to emphasize maybe leaving those voicemails, moving them forward, looking at email opens and those sorts of things. So shift that KPI around a little bit and take into account that we're not going to get callbacks, right? All right, so let's talk about the voicemail script itself. So always start with a voicemail script. Don't do it on the fly. If you're using Age Leads or a really affordable lead source, or you're working Age Leads inside of your organization, your CRM, you can afford to do some testing and some experimentation here. So Ultimately, we want to get to a script, but I'm also comfortable with making a bunch of phone calls and just kind of feeling what's natural, right? Leave that voicemail and sort of do that testing of that script and you getting comfortable with the message that you're leaving. Again, if you're using an affordable lead source or you have some old leads just sort of sitting around, you can make a lot of phone calls and you can kind of test that and get your voice and your tone right by practicing that. But then script it, then write it down, actually build it, because you're going to find when you hit that voicemail, you're going to have a tendency to get long-winded. You're going to have a tendency to sort of drag it out. You're going to have a tendency to not really know how to start and not really know how to end. So writing it on paper, having a script, and using that over and over again, and of course, continually optimizing that, making it feel more natural, making it your own. I always talk about scripts as essentially something you use like an actor uses a script, not just sitting here and sort of reading it. It's a guide. You want to make it your own. You want to incorporate your own voice in it. You want to own that script, but it starts by writing it down, right? So here's the key tenets of that voicemail script, right? We're going to keep it short and sweet. Again, writing it down will help enforce that. Reading it when we're leaving the voicemail will help enforce that. We're going to deliver that message with clarity. We're not going to fumble. We're not going to stammer. We're not going to get tongue-tied. Again, writing it down, practicing it out loud is going to help all of those things. We're going to keep it super professional, but at the same time, give it your own tone and flair, right? But we want it to be professional. This is going to be your first impression, so let them know that you're dealing with a professional. In this audience, most of you are, in the financial services realm. So again, that professional delivery is going to be super important because they're trusting you with a financial or life type decision. And so that's going to be really important. It also gives you consistency, right? When you're leaving voicemails like this and you're consistently reading off and going from a particular script, you can look at the results and the responses to those, and you can determine whether or not the script is working. So you can use a data and analysis, and it will give you a good set of results to analyze because you have been consistent. And then, of course, it's going to save you tons of time, right? And if you can do voicemail drops or something like that, it's going to save you even more time because you're not going to have to think about it. You're not going to rattle. You're not going to extend that voicemail too long. You're just going to read it, right? And you're done with your calls. Okay. So here's the proven voicemail script that I like to use. Again, these are frameworks. You're going to, of course, put this in the context of your particular lead type or your particular industry. But basically, these are the fundamental tenets, right? We're going to keep it short and sweet, 30 seconds or less. We're going to use a friendly, mellow tone, right? I'm not going to get overly excited, right? Oftentimes we get that voicemail and we say, "Hey, Bob, it's great to hear you. This is Bill, and I want to do this." You just kind of go over the top, right? You just kind of lean into that call. We don't want to do that. We want it to sound a little bit more, well, not a little bit, exactly like just a friend contacting you, right? So we don't want to be overly dramatic. We don't want to get too accelerated. We don't want to, turn up the flame on that call because that's probably what's already giving them some anxiety. So we want this just calm, mellow tone, not too much hyper enthusiasm, but obviously give them indication in your voice. Use some intonation and some variability in the way that you deliver it, so that it shows that you're interested in what you're doing. You're passionate about what you're selling. You think that this conversation is important. But generally, again, keep it friendly, keep it mellow, don't keep it over dramatic, don't necessarily get sort of hyperbolic with it, right? Just kind of keep it in a nice, even, professional delivery, as if you were leaving a message for a friend. The other thing is, when you get this call, this essentially they're going to read a text message, right? They're going to read this voicemail. I think it's really important, and I talk about this in phone scripts and in voicemail scripts, and even quite honestly in email and text scripts. There are two things that you need to, almost like objections, you need to get out of that consumer's mind as soon as you can, right? One is, why are you calling me? right? So we want to clearly and quickly deliver, hey, this is the purpose of my call. This is why I'm calling you. This is why I think this particular thing will be interesting to you. This is why I think this needs your attention right now. And then number two, where did you get my information, right? So, and hey, I'm going through, my database at Hometown Lender, and it looks like we tried to reach out to you before, but we weren't able to connect. Or, hey, I'm reaching out to all of the people that look like this, or potentially we've talked to in the past, or who have reached out to us via the website looking for information about this, or this happened in the market just now. And I think it's important to let all of my customers know about this opportunity, this situation, right? So crafting some reason for the call at this moment and how I actually got your information, right? Where it came from, where your information came from. And then, of course, we want to set expectations and next steps. So this is a great way to wrap up the call and to end it, is to clearly tell them what you expect from them next, or what they can do to move the process forward. And this is where I love just using the simple let them off the hook, right? So I should be using this with email, and maybe I'm using it with email and text message. So I'm going to reference that. I'm going to say, hey, Jill, no need to call me back. I just sent you an email, or I will be sending you an email. It's going to have a little bit of more information about the purpose for my call and the ways that I can help you. And I would love for you to take a look at that email, and then we can set up an appointment to talk more specifically about your situation, right? So something simple like that. Again, letting them off the hook. No need to call me back. Driving them to your other channels of communication, and potentially the ones that they feel more in control of. That's why I like to drive them to an email, or hey, take a look for the email, because one, it makes them sort of fish out that email, so it's going to send signals to the great email gods out there that my email is valuable and important, and so I don't get stuck in spam filters and all those sorts of things, or get filtered off, because they're actually going to dig it out, they're going to open it up, they're going to spend some time with it. It's going to send all kinds of good signals to email service providers, and at the same time, it's going to give me a little bit more real estate to make my pitch, right? And that email, those emails that I'm sending out are, and we cover this in another video, they are still short and sweet, right? But it gives me a little bit more space, a little more real estate, allows me to link off to more detailed information. So again, another good reason to point them at the email and let them off the hook for calling you back, right? And then because you kind of let them off the hook for calling you back, and you can play with this, you can either leave them contact information or not. Generally, I would just tell them, hey, all my contact information is inside of my email. There's really no reason. We still do this a lot. I do it with my friends and everything when I call, and I do happen to leave a voicemail, although I almost never leave a voicemail anymore because I just expect them to respond to the caller ID, which again, another thing to sort of take into account, the reason that callbacks are not sort of happening. But anyway, long story short on that is again, there's no reason to say your phone number, right? So if they're going to actually respond to you, they're probably going to text you back, actually, in response to the voicemail, or they might call you back from that number. So make sure that number is going to ring you directly. It's going to hit your cell phone, so you can be super responsive if they do happen to call you back. But at the end of the day, there's no need to really leave contact information. You can just, again, reference that email. All my contact information's inside of there. Okay. So we went through that. That should help you build out your voicemail script with these 5 basic steps, right? Keep it short. We're going to use a friendly mellow tone. We're going to have an opening. We're going to tell them why we're calling. We're going to tell them how we got their information. And then we're going to tell them, hey, there's no need to call me back. Just take a look at the email that I just sent you, or the text message that I'm getting ready to send you. And again, based on, again, all your compliance and your internal legal stuff or whatever, it is a great way and sort of a natural behavior. If I call you and you don't answer, and we even do this with our friends probably, right? Or I do. If I call and you don't answer, I'm probably going to just hit you with a text message and say, hey, this is why I called you, right? So again, this is why like voicemail and text messaging are becoming interchangeable. Okay, so let me get to sort of pitching you on why you need to leave voicemails, right? And you need to devote time. So we've already talked about why it's important to devote time to scripting it, but why do you need to make sure you leave voicemails, right? When I send emails out, just the nature of it, right? It's going to get filtered off. Maybe it's going to hit the spam box. Maybe it's going to get held back by the organization. There's a whole lot of reasons that your email will not get delivered, right? But voicemail and text message, but we're talking about voicemails right now. Voicemails and text messages, there's no filtering. Goes straight through and pops up on the notification screen of that phone, right? And those people are going to see your voicemail. They're going to see that you left them a voicemail. They're going to get a notification. They're going to just habitually click it, and they're going to be able to read it. So there's no filter, there's no interruption. You know that message is going to get delivered. So don't miss that opportunity. Don't call and just frustrate them with this random phone number that showed up in their caller ID with no context. Because if you do that and you don't leave that voicemail, especially on the first call, their assumption is going to be that phone number every time thereafter is just going to be assumed to be spam, right? So you need to leave that voicemail, especially the first time, and make sure that you've scripted it so it's a good, excellent first impression. And again, no filtering. That message is going to get read, right? You're going to use these because it is going to get read, and it's going to get read. You're going to use it to build trust and credibility, right? You're going to use it to actually get that sort of value proposition in front of their eyes so that they can get introduced to you and your brand, right? And then, of course, follow that framework to make them effective. Okay, so here's another thing to do sort of as you're building these out, right? I really want to promote a couple of folks who do this really well, and you can just simply do a search. You're already here on YouTube. Actually, as soon as you watch this one, you're probably going to get recommended a couple of these individuals anyway. But the other thing that's really good to sort of tune your ear and help you build script is there's a variety of people. A lot of these are in B2B, so may not be perfectly applicable to B2C, but listen and look at and watch some of these videos of some other folks giving recommendations about voicemail. You get some really clever ideas, and you'll start to tune your ear. You'll start to sort of hear things that are going to feel good to you as you build out your script. So I'd really encourage you to do that process as well. All right. Hopefully that gives you a great foundation to start building that first to build that first voicemail script, and encourage you to do that and start leaving those, and you're going to have so much more success just from the simple fact that one, that voicemail message is going to be nice and tight and scripted. It's going to pass through all the filters straight to the phone notification screen. They're going to click on it. They're going to read it. They're going to be introduced, and you're going to tell them, and you're going to let them off the hook. They don't have to call you back, but they should take a few seconds to read your email. So it's going to enhance the effectiveness of your email campaign. It's going to enhance the effectiveness of the awareness of your product and everything that you're trying to accomplish in contacting this customer. So voicemail scripts are a super critical part of your sales process. Do not give that opportunity away. So hope you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe so you can get all of our sales training. And then if you need an affordable lead source to try all of these sales tips on, I encourage you to go to ageleadstore.com and check out our super affordable, about $1 a lead. There is no more affordable source to fill your database and fill your pipeline. So we'll see you on the next video.